I'm Millie Kendall. I'm the CEO of the British Beauty Council. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what we do, our aim has always been to raise the reputation of the industry, safeguard its future, nurture its talent, and harness its power to push for change. Probably not very surprising for those of you that know me and the organisation. In addition to all of that, I'm personally a lover of beauty and everything that's encompassed within it. Truly, I believe that activism is intrinsically linked to identity. We use products and treatments to project the strongest version of ourselves into the world, and this can give us confidence and a voice which we need to become an activist. What's more, to me, beauty is intrinsically linked with identity politics, and this really allows for personal expression. So I'll give you a bit of background to my story. Some of you probably know this, but particularly the girls that work for me, they probably hear me talk about it all the time. So I don't want to bore you too much. But my mum was a sort of hippie / punk. In the 70s, she had like orange and green hair, very short. Used to drag us down the King's Road to a shop called Sex, which at the age of like 10 was so embarrassing. And she was a real activist, walked around Hampstead with no shoes on. My grandmother wouldn't walk on the same side of the street with her. My mum felt that, you hardened your soul by walking with no shoes on. Which I think she got that wrong somehow. But anyway, I get what she meant. My dad was a hairdresser. He was a sort of, looked a bit like David Essex, did like, clients like Ingrid Bergman and John Gielgud, and was, thought he was really fabulous. And in the 1970s, they moved to America and dragged me with them. And I found it really difficult to sort of land in what was quite puritanical California at the age of 11, and just rebelled. I just started to rebel. It was like one thing after another. I couldn't stand it. And I think I probably I've always had an element of that sort of activist in me. I probably wouldn't have called it that at the time, but I've always liked to do something that's new, a bit radical, a little bit risky. I'm not a very safe person. The girls can probably attest to that. I'm not the kind of person you want to be with necessarily in a crisis, unless you want to run straight at it, basically. Anyway, I turned 50 in 5 years ago. When was that? 2000. I've lost all track of time because of COVID. But about 5 years ago, I turned 50, and it was around the time that the country voted to Brexit, Donald Trump was elected, David Bowie died, and I thought our whole world was crashing down on me. I could not see a future for my kids, and I had 2 teenagers at the time. Actually, the little one was probably about nine, something like that. And I just felt that I couldn't sit around and watch life just go on without doing something to kind of control it. I wanted to control the destiny of my friends' businesses. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to kind of, I didn't want to die with, she created a lipstick on an epitaph. I don't know why. I had this thing in my head. I wanted to be known for something that would make my kids proud, because I didn't think my kids would be very proud of me, having known I just made a lip gloss or something. Anyway, I don't know. So I really kind of like pulled myself together, and somebody said to me, don't be one of those people that posts a lot about politics and what makes you angry on Facebook. Just do something about it. So I found a group of like-minded people, probably like you guys in the room, and we clubbed together to create something called the British Beauty Council. And through that work at the British Beauty Council, I now promote cross-industry collaboration to ignite both top-down and grassroots activism for increased social mobility, more diverse educational opportunities, and greater greater representation of our industry at government level. And the list goes on. Everything is available to view on our website, so just do a deep dive into the kind of work we do. Primarily, what we do is we work to ensure that the government and consumers understand and recognise the value of the beauty industry to the British economy and its social impact, thus positioning the beauty industry as a force to be reckoned with. The British Beauty Council and its network aren't the only ones who have realised the power of beauty activism. In fact, 84% of global consumers are making an effort to buy products from companies that support causes they care about, making the case that the benefits of being a beauty activist don't stop domestically. That's what I'm here to talk to you about today. the importance of beauty activism for both today's consumer and the future of our industry. So what is beauty activism? Now, if we're getting into the details, a definition of activism is the action of vigorous campaigning to bring about political and social change. So how does beauty relate to this? Well, I believe that everyone becomes an activist as soon as they use a beauty product, whether it's applying a skincare routine each day or perfecting your powdering. Beauty is a medium through which we can all manipulate ourselves to promote a message, and that message is about what we truly believe in. Examples of activism. So take sustainability as an example. Our Courage to Change report that was published in 2020 says that 1 in 7 people changed to a more sustainable beauty product in the last 3 months, and 88% of consumers want brands to do more to help them make a difference. People who have made the switch to more sustainable products are actively doing their bit for climate activism, whether they believe it or not. After all, by switching to refillables, reusables, and buying from brands with more sustainable supply chains, consumers are using their purchasing power to push for a greener future. Beauty activism is also making its mark on the metaverse. Gen Zers are creating digital beauty communities, products and subcultures that are designed to push back against current societal pressures. If you haven't seen the Unseen Spectra eyeshadow, I would take a look at it. Search for it online. It's an absolutely brilliant piece of technology, science, and beauty combined. It looks like a grey eyeshadow on application, but it turns into a glittering spectacle as soon as you take a picture of it. Cleverly, this product blurs the lines between digital and physical realities, prompting the wearer to question their online and offline personas and where their beauty or their value in beauty lies. What's an amazing makeup tech innovation is also a tool for prompting questions about identity and the existing boundaries of modern beauty stereotypes, which will lead the wearer to activism. So, beauty and politics are intrinsically linked, in my mind anyway. However, it's taken the government a long time to come around to this. When I first started the British Beauty Council, I was aware of the disparity between the power of beauty and its lack of government representation, but the government couldn't seem to make the connection. This was in part due to the lack of awareness of how multifaceted the industry is and what it contributes to. So, knowing that the government loves stats, we set ourselves a challenge of defining what British beauty really is and its true value. This happened in 2 parts. So first, back in 2018, which seems like an absolute bloody lifetime ago, we worked with Britain Thinks, a leading insight and strategy agency, to set boundaries for what is and isn't beauty, the first definition of its kind. And it's a remarkably obvious thing, but no one had ever done that before. We were then able to use this definition to value the beauty industry in all of its parts. At the time, we concluded that beauty contributed £28.4 billion to UK GDP. On top of this, it supported £7 billion in UK tax revenues, which God knows they need now. And consumer spending was valued at £27.2 billion. With these findings, we had the economic narrative we needed to stick the power of beauty to the government. I really love doing that. And get the funding we needed for COVID-19 when it hit. I mean, that did, again, take us about a year. But, you know, with those numbers in my hand and my big gob, it really did work. We got an extra £500 million for our industry in February 2021. Although at the time we didn't know COVID was set to hit, you know, the British Beauty Council, I think, really did give people a voice. We really did kind of get people moving in the same direction together, and I think it really did help to bring everyone together. This was one of my favourite things that we did during COVID, which was the Hello Beauty campaign. So the council really came into its own when the pandemic hit. I mean, as this highlighted the cracks in the foundation of our industry. In 2020, salons were shut for 140 days. Turnover fell by 45% compared to 2019, and the average cash loss to a business was £17, and that's to a small business. That's a lot of money to a tiny business with 3 people standing on the shop floor waiting for people to come in the door. And it hit even harder those over the VAT threshold. They took a much bigger hit. I feel really emotional when I talk about COVID. Probably need to see a therapist about that. What else were we meant to do at the British Beauty Council than to shout out for an industry we were dedicated to help it to find its voice in its time of need? We launched a series of media campaigns with the Telegraph and the Daily Mail, and that is no accident, by the way. Those two papers are the most read by the Tory party. So we went straight to the source. We had support from media titles like Grazia and Marie Claire, which in turn gave us hundreds of thousands of workers and business owners in our sector the ability to shout for themselves. And one of the things that we really intended to do back in the beginning of the British Beauty Council was to equip young people with the voice. And that was so important to us. And when COVID hit, it was so unbelievable the amount of messages I got on Instagram or Facebook of people that said, you've given me a voice, I've been able to write to my MPs, I've stood up for myself, and that's massively important. So from Bring Back Beauty to Chop the VAT, we worked tirelessly. I really can't speak well today, can I? Sorry. Maybe I should have a little sip of water. It might... I almost choked on it. In my recyclable aluminium can, of course. From Bring Back Beauty to Chop the VAT, we worked tirelessly to bring a voice and focus to an industry that felt forgotten throughout 2020. We also galvanised industry-wide support across the media, and with this hashtag Beauty on the Brink, we really got to showcase the struggles that people were going through in our sector. We worked with Marie Claire magazine to create the Bring Back Beauty films. They were biographical films that showcase what the beauty industry really does for its clients and how essential they are to British communities up and down the country. Here's a little snippet.
When you see someone every week, and you've seen them every week for 20 plus years, they become like family. I mean, I've seen some of them through husbands dying, cancer, illness, you know, real tragedy in their lives. So if I feel I've given them something back and it's cheered their day up, then I'm doing my job really well.
My name is Julie and I'm one of Tim's Friday ladies. We meet every Friday because we all have the same appointments week in, week out.
These girls have been a support to me throughout my career. They've followed me from pillar to post, from one salon to another. Wherever I've worked, they've come to me every Friday religiously. So they haven't supported me just in the last 18 months, they've supported me for the last 25 years. So I adore them, yeah.
At that point, I really wanted to be a Friday lady because they were the most amazing group of spirited women that just absolutely loved their hairdresser. So because of all this, we were given a place at the table to present proposals for a package of beauty industry saving measures, including the Personal Care Emergency Fund to support businesses with cash flow challenges, which actually saw Her Majesty's Treasury give the industry a further £500 million worth of support to get back on its feet in the Chancellor's spring budget. And that was a big, major win for us. A year before, we were an industry that was not known to government. I was literally turned away from Portcullis House and told, we don't know who you are. Your industry is just a small part of fashion. Go away and come back when you've got yourself organised. And thank God we did. So, activism for sustainability. And, you know, this is not my piece of work. I just have to say there are some fabulous people in the room that have supported this work throughout the past few years, if not probably before the British Beauty Council. So as mentioned earlier, in a similar vein to the Value of Beauty report, we needed to analyse the beauty industry for its green credentials, or lack thereof. We didn't really know at the time. And we needed to do this before we could campaign to change to fix it. I'm a firm believer that you have to sort of peel the layers of the onion to kind of like see what's beneath the surface. There's a lot of marketing hype that we use in our industry, which I think is very dangerous and very wrong. And so I'm a firm believer of do a deep dive. I like a report. They're very expensive, but they're very useful. So I worked with Anna Teal from Aromatherapy Associates, who was at the time our innovation pillar president, to commission a report designed to set out a vision of how we can move forward together to create an industry that nurtures the planet and protects our future. The research presented some of the most damaging planetary effects of our industry, from a pot of moisturiser taking 1,000 years to decompose, to the daunting truth that water poverty could impact 2/3 of the population by 2025. The report spotlighted key supply chain and resource issues that are set to dictate our futures if we don't make a change. And this work continues today. We've just held a plastic solution summit, I should say, with some of the leading organisations in personal care, to kind of get them to sign a pact to make some changes. You have to do a deep dive, I believe, really get to sort of under the surface of what the challenges are, and then continue and build momentum, because you can't just stop after one report. We know this stuff exists. We know there's a problem. We have to continue. So this led us to being the only NGO invited to COP26 to present the British beauty industry, to represent.
Welcome to COP26 2021 here in Glasgow, the most important climate summit in history. We need to act fast, and we need to see all industries united. And today here in Glasgow, the beauty industry are very much that, united.
It stands for Innovation for the Circular Economy. And we've created this to really start to demonstrate what is possible, both within the beauty industry, but the broader industry as well, particularly in terms of reusable packaging and designing products in the right way.
To be responsible citizens today actually means we need less stuff, not more stuff. Now, that's a really hard message to an industry. But I think as everything that we buy now, we have to ask ourselves, do we really need it, and does it really make a difference? So buy less, buy better, that's number one. That's the mantra we should all be applying, not just to the beauty industry, but to life in general.
We really need to see brands being transparent on what they're doing, and by doing that, they'll not only attract shoppers that want to support them, but they'll also collaborate with each other and be like, look, we haven't solved this problem, have you? And we need to start a dialogue between all of the companies so that we can rally together and solve the problems. Because, yeah, the reality is we don't have time to be in like single player mode. We have to be working together, because this is a big mountain to climb and there's no way we're going to do it alone.
Thanks, Jessie. That's Jessie over there. So the British Beauty Council Sustainable Beauty Coalition was formed as a result of the Courage to Change. We did the deep dive, and then there were some suggestions by the people that we commissioned to do the report. And as well as liaising with the government, the task force are dedicated to educating consumers and business owners about the importance of sustainable switches. So we have a Planet Positive Beauty Guide that you can download for free from our website that really helps you, your businesses, your consumers understand what the claims are on products. The Courage to Change report is also free to download from our website, as is the value of beauty, the definition of beauty. Everything we do, we make open source so everyone can kind of be on this activism journey with us. And as I said, most recently we held the Plastic Solutions Summit, and that was during British Beauty Week. We were joined by influential voices from across the sector. Together we worked to formulate a new roadmap for the industry's plastic use. We're in the midst of working with May Thornton AKQA to design the outputs, which we're very excited to share with the industry to further the urgent need to work together better for our planet. I think we've got a review meeting on November 16th, which will they'll present a white paper on what came out of the Plastic Summit. It was a sort of half-day think tank. So it's not just what I think of the way forward is. If you collaborate with other people, you'll find like-minded people along the way. And sometimes if people aren't like-minded, maybe you could convince them to think differently. So the Plastic Solutions Summit, I hope, will be a really big piece of work that we'll do next year. I work with colleagues who are like-minded activists as well. So Annabelle Kindersley, who's here in the front row, of Neal's Yard Remedies, and Jane Sterling, Managing Director of Walida and Chair of the Sustainable Beauty Coalition, spread the word about the damaging effects of insecticides as part of a wider Save the Bees campaign. And we took a letter to Parliament to ensure that government were aware of what we were campaigning for. Watch this video.
Neonicotinoids, which James talked about, are this class of pesticides which are actually 7,000 times more deadly and toxic than DDT, which was banned. And it was always deemed to be safe, and now we know the harm to bees. Like a single teaspoon kill 1.25 billion bees, so it's no joke. I've started a petition which you have signed and got Walida behind, and the Sustainable Beauty Coalition and the British Beauty Council, and actually another 80 businesses and organisations, to cut the use of hazardous pesticides and to ask the government for a pesticide reduction framework. I mean, I was also wanting to say to you, you know, we're worried about insects and bees, and you might ask us, why on earth would we be bothered about that? If we're in the beauty industry, why do insects matter? I know I keep going on about bees, the ultimate pollinators, but actually there's been a 60% decline in insects over the last 20 years alone. So what does that mean? In the next 10 or 20 years, we're going to have no insects. But actually, I was thinking the most important conversation probably for our listeners is why does that matter to us in the beauty industry?
It's a great question, but you're not just a beauty industry, a beauty company, you're farmers.
Exactly.
And we're farmers.
Exactly.
And so we know that without pollinators, we don't have plants.
No.
And we also know that pollinators account for 75 to 90% of all food production. And we effectively, that's what we use.
Exactly.
So without pollinators, we won't exist. And more importantly, nature is really going to struggle.
As you can see, I'm not the only activist in the room. So I'm really dedicated to continuously challenging and campaigning to ensure that the beauty industry has access to resources, funding and opportunities that it needs to thrive. You know, the game has changed. We've changed. You know, I do strongly believe that we have to think about what the future of our industry is and how we want to drive it in that direction. It can't just be a runaway train and we're just there for the ride. That's not how this works. You know, we're currently gathering insights about energy usage within the beauty industry sector. For example, that's one of the things that we're doing last week, ready for, October 24th. I think we've got to present how much energy we use as an industry so that we can try and get some emergency funding past April. Good luck. But we are, there are certain things that just pop up reactively that you have to address really quickly and you have to react to. And then there are certain things that you really need to look at to future-proof the industry. We've launched a trade hub. That's something I must tell you about. So we've launched a trade hub on our website. I personally, I'm not ashamed to say so. I think Brexit was a disaster for our industry. I think it's a disaster for our country. And I'll say it to anyone that listens. So what we've tried to do on our website is create a trade hub for brands that want to trade outside of the UK, and they're struggling to find the information easily. So we've worked with Department for International Trade, and we've put everything on one page, just a gigantic scroll with EU, US, and China so far. So if you're looking to trade or you want information or resources, it's all there for you. The UK was the 7th highest importer of cosmetics in 2021, and exports were valued at approximately 4.95 billion in the same year. I don't know if Mark's in the room, but that might not be quite right. That's the numbers that are being thrown around at the moment. I'm verifying that with a new report, of course. So knowing this, we put our heads together with DIT to collate the right resources for our industry. So please go and take a look at that. We've got big plans for the future as British beauty regulation, reputation and innovation face barriers due to government changes and increased societal challenges. It's very important. It feels like a massive mountain in front of us, but we will get there. And I think now there are more of us working towards a better and brighter future for our industry. We'll continue to advocate on behalf of the industry, but we really do need you guys to all stand with us. I would encourage everyone who hasn't already to see their beauty business rituals and purchases through the lens of activism, because it really can open your eyes to the power of beauty. And I've one last thing to ask you before I can take questions if that works for everyone. One last thing to ask you. I'm sleeping out for the homeless on the 21st of November. So if you go to my Instagram and go onto the link tree, please donate a little bit of money, because I'm sleeping in the freezing cold and I've never slept out. I've never even went camping. So this is like a really big deal. Listen, a 5 or a 10 would really help. And there's a link on my Instagram. Any questions? Go on. I knew Sam would be the first to raise his hand.
Hi, Melly. Thanks for that. It's fantastic. We all know how great our industry is, but how do we stop our industry tearing each other apart? And I'm talking about clean, safe, non-toxic, we know that scientifically that's a sort of smoke and mirrors marketing tool to sell through fear. But what it does is it instills a mistrust within our consumer.
Yeah, I say this a lot, and I know you do too. I do not like marketing buzzwords. I mean, I came from the hypoallergenic, non-comedogenic, all those kind of terms that we were told to use on the shop floor. I sold cosmetics, to consumers directly, and we were told, use this word, to flog products to people. And I think we need to stop. I think we need to collectively stop, and I won't stop saying it until we do. I think we need to stop using marketing buzzwords. I think it's shameful. It's embarrassing. We get called out on it anyway. We might as well quit while we're ahead. Provenance are fantastic in terms of transparency. If you are creating a brand and you're selling products, you have a responsibility to the consumer to be transparent. You have got to lay your cards out on the table, because if you don't do it in advance, they're going to ask you for it. And if you don't have it and you're not able to do that, you will be called out. I mean, the fashion industry gets called out way more than we do at this point, but we're about to, I'm trying to commission a report for next year into human rights so that we can really do a deep dive into what's the good and bad and ugly of how we treat our people, because I think that's really important. And the fashion industry have been caught out quite a lot on that. And so I think I think in the UK we are much better at not using those terms. We don't use the word clean as much as obviously they do in the US. I get asked a lot by US press about why we don't. And I say because it's absolute rubbish. And there's no certifiable kind of, what does it even mean? The problem is that I don't think we're going to have global certifications anytime soon. And that's a real challenge for a lot of the industry. That's everything from aesthetics, beauty therapists being able to put, Botox in your forehead in your front room over a glass of champagne, to certifications on products. So, I think the next step probably in the next sort of 5 to 10 years for the British Beauty Council will be to work globally with other organisations to try to set out a framework. And that has to, going back to there's a real challenge with our industry, and this is global, where how our industry is calculated, classified, kind of quantified with governments around the world is by a code, a 4-digit code. And that code has been the same since 1948. And I don't know about you, but I'm not the same since, things have moved on a little bit since then. So we are campaigning to get that code changed. It's the most boring topic, but I talk about it all the time, because actually if we do get that changed, it will change globally, and it will completely make a difference, I think, to our industry. SIC codes. If I ask you to help me campaign to change the SIC code, please get behind me. Otherwise, we're going to end up with Jacob Rees-Mogg talking about massage parlours for the rest of our lives.